Hello, everyone, and welcome again to another Teacher Joseph podcast. Yesterday, I was telling you about the St. George's Day celebrations, which were taking place in London. And today, in our media, there's a mixed bag of stories. A mixed bag means some good and some bad, relating to yesterday in London. As I mentioned, St. George's Day can be a little bit controversial because the day is often heavily politicized. English and British people generally are reclaiming their right to proclaim themselves as Scottish or English rather than simply saying they're British. Today, in our media, there are some pictures of some of the celebrations which took place yesterday. There's Morris dancers. Now, Morris dancers are very specifically English traditional dancers who sometimes appear when there's English, very specifically English celebrations. It's like an English folk dance. Now, many people don't know this, but in the same way as you have Scotland with bagpipes, and you have Irish people doing river dancing and talking in Irish, in England they have Morris dancers. Now, this is often overlooked because it's not so well known. In a country which is full of diversity, English traditional things often get overlooked. Of course, there's the traditional English pubs. That's one thing which English people recognize as being something which belongs to them, but they do also have some dancing. Morris dancers are usually men who wear white suits with some red sashes across their body. They're often wielding white flags and have bells tied to their legs to make noises as they move. We use the word wield when someone is handling a flag or a weapon or generally holding something. You might recognize that word from the headlines in the newspaper. Bad man wielding a weapon was taken away by police. A man was wielding a bat in the shopping centre and the security officers detained him. But wielding is not always something bad. In this case, and in the picture I'm looking at now, the Morris dancers are wielding flags. Let me just talk a little bit about this picture. So there's a group of men who clearly have been practicing their choreography because they're moving at exactly the same speed and pace. And it's quite obvious from this photo that they've all jumped into the air at the same moment. They have bells tied to their legs, they're wielding flags, they have red sashes across their chests. There's many people watching them, and what's quite striking about this photo is the mixture of colours. So the shopping centre seems to be themed with a brown kind of colour. On one side there's an espresso bar, which is kind of brown. It has a brown sign, a dark brown doorway, and on the other side of the photo there's a pub which has the same colours: brown columns, brown sign, dark brown doorway. And in the middle there's a huge arch, and light is streaming in the window. And as it streams in, it really brightens up this shopping centre, and it makes these Morris dancers look probably more interesting than they actually are. Morris men, Morris dancers, have been around England since the 15th century, probably earlier. And if you see them on the street, they would kind of, now this is going to sound a little bit strange, okay? But if you think of the Hare Krishna people, you know, the ones who go through the streets and they're dancing and singing with bells, chanting Hare Krishna, it's something kind of similar, but without the Indian references, of course. But they have the same kind of sounds. They have bells ringing tied to their legs. They have these little hand bells that they use. But of course, the costume is completely different. All of these Morris men seem to be having beards on their faces, and I'm sure that's not a coincidence. But they are moving rather slowly through this shopping centre, and that's what they're known for, these Morris dancers. So that was one photo, very nice photo, which was taken yesterday during the St. George's Day celebrations. Now, as I was mentioning to you yesterday, St. George's Day celebrations are kind of new. In history, we didn't really celebrate George's Day or any of the patron saint days. So now it's become a day of nationalism, but also a day of protest. I'm going to read for you a little story that appeared in our newspaper called The Independent. And it's because the police arrested some people at another St. George's Day parade. When the police arrest people, it means they take them away and they maybe give them a penalty, or they formally charge them with some kind of criminal offence. So let's read this story together. It says, a St. George's Day parade in central London yesterday turned violent, with police in riot gear. That just means riot clothing. You know, they were holding shields, batons, and they were wearing protective clothing. Police in riot gear clashing with men covered in England flags. More than a dozen officers, including police on horses, fought, past tense of fighting, with a crowd of men in London as they were causing some problems in London. 6 people were arrested, 4 outside of a pub. 3 people were arrested because they assaulted an emergency worker, and someone else hit one of the police horses with an umbrella. It seems that crowds had been listening to some speeches by one of our politicians. I'm not sure if he's actually a politician, but he's someone who always gives very fiery speeches that makes English people feel very nationalistic. He was in jail for a while, and because he's been charged, and because he gives these fiery speeches, I'm not going to mention his name. It says here that police said this parade could go ahead, but warned people that they had to stay within a certain area and they had to behave. But some people didn't obey the orders of the police. So the police came with their horses to restore public order. I think probably some of these people had been drinking. And when that happens, of course, there's always difficulties. And speaking of drinking, another headline in our newspaper today is that the government have realized that if they switch our National Health Service away from coffee to decaffeinated drinks, they could save a lot of money. Now, as you know, our government operates many care homes here. Older people who don't have family to live with often end their life inside a nursing home or some kind of care facility. And it says here that care home residents switching their hot drinks could save the National Health Service £85 million per year, a new study has found. And what they're saying is that if people drink decaffeinated drinks, they won't have to go to the bathroom so often, and they won't fall trying to reach the bathroom so often. So it's basically saying that if they give them decaffeinated drinks, there won't be such a rush to use toilet facilities. They may not have an accident, and they may not have to rely on staff to take them to the bathroom so urgently. It says here that after testing this, they've discovered that decaffeinated drinks have been shown to reduce toilet urgency amongst certain groups of people, and it's reduced falls in care homes by 30%. And if this plan goes ahead, decaffeinated drinks may be rolled out across the NHS into hospitals and other health service caregiving areas. That sounds terrible, doesn't it? So our governments really are kind of grasping at straws, as we say in England, to save some money if they're honestly considering taking away coffee from older people. It seems very strange, that, doesn't it? As I mentioned before, our government love to play the part of our mother and tell us what we can and can't do and what's good for us and what isn't. It's unclear if these changes would cover all of the NHS, because bearing in mind the four nations each have their own responsibilities. There's NHS Scotland, National Health Service Scotland, National Health Service England, and the same for Northern Ireland and Wales. So I don't know exactly whether they would implement that for the whole of the NHS. I would guess it probably would be only for England, I suppose. And I suppose residents in care homes will simply ask their families or will ask people to get them real coffee. I mean, I would imagine one of the little luxuries anyone getting up in the morning would need would be their coffee. And I'm sure the staff will have their own supplies of coffee as well. Well, as we often say, whatever kills you, let me see, it's not whatever kills you, it's what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. That's what they say, isn't it? And that was a song by Kelly Clarkson. And strangely, it's her birthday today. So I think What Doesn't Kill You Makes You Stronger was a song that we went through a few weeks ago. So happy birthday to Kelly Clarkson. I don't know how old she is, but it's a beautiful song. What doesn't kill you makes you stronger. That's it from me. I hope you've enjoyed this. Let's talk again soon. See you. Bye.